all just be one human race for 3 or 4 hours. And that's exactly what it turned into. We had a dance party. Everybody was doing like the Macarena.
On January 21st, Colleen Hoover deactivated her Instagram, leaving fans stunned. Once a vocal supporter of Blake Lively, praising her as kind, honest, and the perfect choice for her novel's lead role, Hoover has now erased every trace of the actress from her account. Not a single photo, tag, or mention remains. It's as if Lively never existed in her digital world. Hoover didn't just unfollow. She obliterated all evidence of their once close creative collaboration, wiping it clean like a chapter she no longer wanted in her story. Her usual Instagram presence, filled with wholesome posts, reader shoutouts, and book updates, vanished entirely. No subtle captions, no cryptic stories, just silence. And then she deactivated her account altogether. When she eventually returned, the absence of Blake Lively was impossible to ignore. The message was clear. The partnership was over, and Hoover was no longer willing to pretend otherwise. Meanwhile, Blake's Hollywood life, complete with Ryan Reynolds' red carpet glamour and meticulously planned PR, continued to dominate headlines. But behind the polished facade, turmoil was simmering, and Hoover had clearly stepped away from the chaos. While fans scrambled to speculate about what had happened, one fact stood out. Colleen Hoover had drawn a definitive line, closing the door on a chapter that no longer belonged in her story. Hoover, however, remains connected to Justin Baldoni, her co-producer for the It Ends With Us adaptation, still following him on social media, a move that some see as a deliberate signal of loyalty. To understand how things went awry, we have to rewind to the beginning, when a best-selling author, Hollywood's golden couple, and a beloved novel converged in what promised to be a dream adaptation. It Ends With Us, Hoover's emotionally raw and deeply personal bestseller, had captured the hearts of millions, and a film adaptation was the natural next step. Initially, everything seemed perfect. Hoover placed her trust in actor-director Justin Baldoni, celebrated for 5 feet apart and known as one of Hollywood's most sincere voices. Confident he would honor the novel's delicate themes of resilience and heartbreak. She praised his empathy and dedication, believing he could bring her story to the screen with integrity. Then came the casting announcement that made headlines. Blake Lively would portray Lily Bloom, the novel's strong yet vulnerable protagonist. Fans were ecstatic. Lively appeared to be the ideal choice to embody Lily's complexity with both grace and intensity. With Hoover's trust, Baldoni's vision, and Lively's star power, the project seemed poised for both critical acclaim and box office success. Behind the scenes, cracks began to appear. What started as subtle creative disagreements quickly escalated into full-blown tension. Sources claim that Blake Lively wasn't merely acting, she was actively reshaping the project. While some saw her contributions as creative input, others alleged she pushed boundaries, rewriting scenes, questioning direction, and asserting influence far beyond her role. Baldoni, once firmly at the helm, found himself navigating the demands of a leading lady who wanted more than just a performance credit. The drama intensified when Ryan Reynolds reportedly took a keen interest in the script. While some viewed his involvement as supportive, others framed it as interference. Reports emerged of rewrites, overreaching input, and a set environment growing increasingly chaotic. What began as a heartfelt adaptation of a beloved novel devolved into a tug-of-war between egos, expectations, and agendas. Then came the shocker. Blake Lively filed a legal complaint against co-star and co-director Justin Baldoni, accusing him of sexual harassment. The allegations were serious, including claims of inappropriate comments and unprofessional handling of intimate scenes. Lively also alleged that Baldoni orchestrated a smear campaign against her, allegedly hiring PR consultants to plant false stories, manipulate social media, and sway public opinion. For Baldoni, whose career was built on being a good guy in Hollywood and advocating for emotional honesty and modern masculinity, the accusations were not just damaging, they were devastating. Baldoni responded swiftly, filing a countersuit accusing Lively of defamation, turning what was once a promising collaboration into a public legal battle that captivated fans and media alike. From his perspective, Baldoni portrayed Lively as controlling, manipulative, and willing to burn reputations to get her way. He denied all harassment claims, alleging that Lively had fabricated the story as a power play that had gone too far. According to him, she leveraged her star power to override creative decisions, only to turn on him when the project didn't bend to her wishes. The public was stunned. Fans were divided, a media frenzy erupted, and social media became a battleground of speculation and opinion. Caught in the middle was Colleen Hoover. Her name and her story were now central to one of Hollywood's ugliest controversies, and she refused to be dragged into the chaos. Hoover's response was deliberate. She vanished from social media, and when she returned, her stance was unmistakable. Blake Lively was erased from her digital world. Every photo, tag, and mention was gone. She unfollowed Lively, yet continued to follow Justin Baldoni. Fans speculated this was more than loyalty. It was a way of protecting her story. It Ends With Us isn't just a romance novel. It's a deeply personal narrative about pain, survival, and growth, inspired by Hoover's own mother's experience with domestic abuse. Watching her work spiral into celebrity drama, lawsuits, and public allegations was everything she hadn't signed up for. From glowing Instagram posts to sudden silence, from creative dreams to courtroom chaos, Hoover saw her story being twisted beyond recognition. For her, stepping away wasn't a PR move. It was a personal decision to reclaim control. Whether the lawsuits conclude quietly or explode into public scrutiny again, one thing is certain. Colleen Hoover is no longer standing beside Blake Lively. She is returning to her writing, her fans, and the quiet creativity that made her famous, leaving the chaos of Hollywood behind. Meanwhile, Lively continues to make headlines. Baldoni fights to defend his reputation, but Hoover is already focused on her next chapter. The legal battle and media spectacle revealed a truth long simmering behind the scenes. This was never just a scandal. It was the inevitable eruption of chaos that had quietly been building throughout production. At the center of the storm wasn't just Blake Lively or Justin Baldoni, it was also Ryan Reynolds. Some framed his involvement as supportive, a husband backing his wife, while others saw it as a major red flag. Reports claimed that the Deadpool star took it upon himself to rework portions of the script, stepping in to tweak dialogue and reshape character arcs in a deeply emotional romance drama. Insiders suggested that this wasn't about improving the film, it was about control. Suddenly, a superhero-turned-screenwriter was influencing a story far outside his usual domain, further complicating an already tense production. Just when it seemed like the situation couldn't get messier, it did. Whispers from the set began painting an increasingly alarming picture of Blake Lively's involvement, suggesting her role had extended far beyond that of a lead actress. Multiple sources claimed she had essentially taken over the production, asserting such control over the creative process that some described her as the unofficial director. Justin Baldoni, the co-director tasked with bringing It Ends With Us to life, was reportedly pushed aside, reduced to a figurehead while Lively dictated everything from camera angles to costume choices, scene blocking to dialogue tweaks, and even minor wardrobe details. Her vetoes were said to come swiftly and confidently, reflecting the authority of someone completely accustomed to being the center of attention in Hollywood. The internet, of course, ran wild with speculation. Some insiders suggested that Lively had long nurtured directorial ambitions, and this adaptation provided her the perfect, high-profile stage to make a behind-the-camera debut, unofficial or otherwise. Meanwhile, tensions with Baldoni reportedly grew daily. He struggled to assert authority as Lively's influence swelled, with disagreements over critical scenes escalating into full-blown conflicts. By many accounts, the set transformed into a battleground of egos, turning what should have been a heartfelt, emotionally resonant film adaptation into a chaotic, soap opera-like spectacle that rivaled the drama of the novel itself. Amidst the swirling lawsuits, social media frenzy, and escalating public speculation, Colleen Hoover made a move that no one anticipated. Despite her previously glowing support for Baldoni and her once-open admiration for Lively as the perfect fit for her novel's lead role, Hoover appeared to sever ties with both entirely, vanishing from their digital worlds and leaving fans stunned. This decision was seen by many as a deliberate, calculated step to reclaim control over her story, signaling that she would no longer allow her deeply personal narrative to become collateral damage in Hollywood's high-stakes power games. Every photo from the movie premiere was gone. Every behind-the-scenes post deleted. Even Hoover's once heartfelt Instagram caption praising Blake Lively as kind, honest, and supportive had vanished. It was as if she wanted to erase every trace of her connection to the project, leaving no digital footprint behind. Fans were stunned. Hoover hadn't just distanced herself from the growing drama. She had digitally erased her involvement entirely, creating a void where her support and excitement for the adaptation had once been. The question on everyone's mind was why. Was this an attempt at neutrality, a way to remain above the fray? Or was it a calculated move to protect her reputation and future in the industry? On the surface, it appeared that she was removing herself from a volatile public controversy that had spun far beyond her control. But her silence spoke volumes. She didn't issue a statement. She didn't offer an explanation. And notably, despite the serious allegations against Baldoni, she never publicly denounced him either. By scrubbing both Lively and Baldoni from her social media, Hoover seemed to be sending a deliberate, strategic message. She wasn't picking sides. To some observers, it was a smart career move, a display of self-preservation in an industry where public perception can make or break a career. To others, it felt like betrayal. Fans accused her of selling out, choosing Hollywood pragmatism over loyalty and personal relationships. Rumors began to swirl about Hoover as a silent opportunist, staying clean while the fallout consumed everyone else. Yet through all the speculation and judgment, one thing became painfully clear. Colleen Hoover was taking control of the narrative on her terms, reclaiming her story before the storm could define it for her. This wasn't just about a movie anymore. The drama surrounding It Ends With Us had escalated into a high-stakes Hollywood war, and even Colleen Hoover's reputation was now on the line. Questions swirled. Was this all a power play? A desperate attempt to survive the fallout of the entertainment industry? Or simply a writer caught in a storm she never asked for? Whatever the answer, one thing was clear: this saga was far from over. Justin Baldoni wasn't just defending his name. He filed a staggering $400 million lawsuit for defamation and damages, a figure that underscores just how monumental this implosion had become. In court documents, Baldoni framed himself as a man whose career had been irreparably damaged. His agency, WME, dropped him almost immediately after the allegations surfaced. And if that wasn't enough, he also turned his frustration toward Hoover, accusing her of abandoning him, siding with Blake Lively without even hearing his side of the story. The stakes had moved beyond reputations. This had become a fight for survival. As the dust began to settle, the public was left asking, is this only the beginning of an even messier saga? Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni, the Hollywood legal war that has dragged Colleen Hoover into the spotlight, whether she wanted it or not. And throughout it all, her silence has been deafening. At first, Hoover had stood firmly behind the stars attached to her adaptation. She sang their praises online, gushed about their talent, and promoted their involvement like a proud creator watching her dream take shape. But as the lawsuits erupted and media frenzy reached a fever pitch, Hoover did something no one expected. She vanished. For weeks, her Instagram account was completely deactivated. No posts, no stories, no explanation. Fans were left scrambling, bewildered. Where did she go? Why now at the height of the drama? And when she finally returned, everything had changed. The social media landscape she once filled with glowing posts and personal reflections had been wiped clean of any trace of Blake Lively. Hoover's silence was no longer passive, it was a statement. A recalibration of her presence, her reputation, and her story. The storm of Hollywood chaos raged around her, but Hoover had begun to write her next chapter on her own terms. Her Instagram wasn't just cleaned, it was obliterated. Every trace of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni was gone. No premiere photos, no behind-the-scenes snapshots, no glowing captions remained. It was as if Hoover had not only erased them from her timeline, but symbolically, from her life. Naturally, the internet noticed. Fans and critics dissected every move, searching for hidden meanings. Was this a desperate bid to protect her career? A carefully calculated strategy to remain neutral amid the chaos? To some, it appeared to be a smart, decisive move, a clean break from the swirling drama. To others, it looked like cowardice, a betrayal of the very people she had once publicly celebrated. Yet one detail stood out. Hoover didn't just remove Blake Lively, she scrubbed both Lively and Baldoni. Still, many weren't convinced this was true neutrality. Erasing Blake, especially in light of her serious allegations, looked to some like a public rejection. Then came the twist. Despite the so-called social media purge, Hoover's professional ties with Baldoni quietly remained intact. The two had collaborated long before the adaptation, and their friendship ran deep. Insiders noted private emails between Hoover and Baldoni that surfaced during legal proceedings, revealing her admiration for his work. In these messages, she praised his vision, his passion, and his storytelling talent, describing him as the perfect person to bring her novel to life. She even cited his work on 5 Feet Apart as proof of his ability to translate complex emotions to the screen. Even amid the storm of public scrutiny and Hollywood drama, these private exchanges suggested that Hoover was making a careful distinction. While publicly distancing herself from the chaos, she remained loyal to the collaborators she genuinely trusted. It was a subtle, strategic balance between protecting her reputation and maintaining her creative alliances, a move that only deepened the intrigue surrounding her next steps. But things began to unravel. At first, Hoover had offered public support for Blake Lively after the allegations against Baldoni surfaced, seemingly siding with the actress. Yet her later actions told a very different story. By deleting every post, wiping clean her Instagram, and refusing to make any official statement, Hoover sent a message that left fans and the media guessing. Was she quietly backing Baldoni while protecting her public image? The truth remains murky, but the speculation has been relentless. And then there's the Hoover-Baldoni dynamic. The duo, once hailed as the dream team behind It Ends With Us, is now as polarizing as pineapple on pizza. Their history stretches far back. Long before Baldoni was cast as Ryle or announced as director, Hoover had entrusted him with her most personal story. That deep bond, once a source of admiration, now raises eyebrows, fueling questions about loyalty, influence, and decision-making behind the scenes.